welcome to another episode of the Influential Nonprofit. As always, I'm your host, Mary Ann Dersch. I work with nonprofit leaders to grow their influence so they can ask for and receive what they want and need without feeling rejected or pushy, because no one wants to feel rejected or pushy. And today, my guest is Matt Nash, and Matt is the executive director of the Blackbaud Giving Fund. And you're leading the organization's mission to unleash generosity by connecting people to the causes they care about throughout the world, which is a great mission to have. And I did not know of the Blackbaud Giving Fund until I met you. So before we get into that, though, Matt, welcome and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure. I'm looking forward to this.
Okay, so my first question is always the same. What is something that you're really proud of that you don't get to brag about a lot?
I'm really proud of it. I don't get to brag about a lot. I would say that I've been in my career really proud about being present with all of the employees, no matter what the level is, because I believe that everybody has a contribution to make, and just because people have different jobs doesn't mean it's more important to another person.
Right. So you've been able to be really like honor people for where they add in their contribution.
Yes, yes. In fact, I get emails or LinkedIn comments quite a bit from people that have worked under me for years and said, "Hey, I just want to let you know that how you handled us when we were junior people made a big difference in my career." I think
That's awesome.
yeah.
All right. Thank you for sharing that. So so let's talk about first the Blackbaud Giving Fund, because I did not know about this. So tell me about it.
Sure. Well, the Blackbaud Giving Fund is a donor advised fund, and it's tied to the work that Blackbaud does in the corporate marketplace in terms of workplace giving. So we support all of the fund flows that come through these corporations. And so imagine any corporation who has a program like this. The employees can go online, they can choose their charity, they can decide how to fund it either through their own personal funds like a credit card. They could choose payroll deduction. And often companies will match those donations. And so the funds come into the Blackbaud Giving Fund by client, and then we combine all the funds that would go to charity X, Y, or Z, and then disperse to those charities based on the recommendation that those employees wanted to do in terms of the cause and charity that they were picking.
That's amazing. So, and how much do you disperse each year?
Last year in 2021, we dispersed $630 million to 140,000 charities in about, I think it was 120 countries.
Sorry, hold on. See, that was a lot of numbers.
Yeah.
600, hold on, $630
$30 million of donations.
A donation, and that went to 120,000 charities.
140,000
charities in 120 countries.
That's correct.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that, because you and I talked before, like a lot of people don't know the fund exists, which
right.
is
yeah. It's relatively new in terms of, we started in August of 2020. Before that, Blackbaud used an outsourced provider to provide this, but we felt that it's important for particularly Blackbaud, who works this ecosystem of good, because Blackbaud provides a lot of services to the nonprofit sector. So adding this component, it's really important that the sector knows that Blackbaud's involved with also giving back to them and getting them funds to help them run their organizations.
Right. And so how does somebody become one of those 140,000 organizations?
Yeah. Well, it starts with, in the United States, the IRS Business Master File, which is the list of charities that the IRS says are permissible charities in the 501(c)(3) ecosystem, and all of those charities are automatically on the charity list. So if an employee goes in, they can pick from those 1.3 million charities.
All right, so I don't have to submit my nonprofit or anything. It's just in there if it's
automatically in there, right? There is a program that we have where they can provide more information, and that allows them to tell their story. It allows them to set up electronic funds transfer between us and them to make it easier to get the funds. But any charity that's on the approved list by the IRS is eligible for giving through the Blackbaud Giving.
Okay. And then who are the employees? So are these employees at different companies? Like
Mhm.
companies go, okay.
Yeah, so just think of, corporate America, from very, very large corporations that have hundreds of thousands of people to somebody who will have an organization of, say, 500 or 200 people. They can all use this software. They subscribe to it, and once the subscription's in, then those employees have access to provide funds to the charities that they want to support.
So what makes like workplace giving important? Like how does it help? Because I'm thinking, well, I could just give to my charity. What makes this fund like how does that amplify the impact?
Yeah, I think there's two components to that. The most obvious one is the company match. When you look at what we out of that $630 million, 40% of it was company match funds.
Wow.
So that's a 40% amplification right there. And
Right.
then the second thing is that a lot of these employees, they've never really gotten involved with giving back in a way that's organized, in a way that's thoughtful. And all through the programs, these corporate social responsibility programs are that these clients run, it gives the employees a chance to participate in, really neat volunteer activities, and giving activities. They work on the volunteer activities together as teams, and so they learn how good it feels to be involved
Yes.
with a nonprofit, and how much they see the effectiveness of these nonprofits and how skilled they are, and the amazing work that they do. So I think the second amplification from my perspective is we're really, the workplace giving is teaching these employees how to be philanthropists as they move forward in their career.
And may these are people that may not be giving or donating or really connected to philanthropy any other way,
That's
right?
correct. And this makes it
Possibly,
very
yeah.
easy. Yeah,
A-
yeah.
And I can see that. And so do some nonprofit organizations do they promote this or like is it I'm just wondering like a give STL, day or something, like a giving like some organizations are just going to promote it or use it better than others. Are there people who really like focus on this and promote it to their donors or you know what I mean? Or I'm not sure if that came across how I
Well,
wanted.
I think there's two forms of promotion that tend to occur. One is almost every one of these companies that runs a workplace giving program has a campaign season where they want to bring forward, and it's the give back day for their employees. And a lot of times what they'll do is they'll choose organizations that are in the locales where this company operates, because they're trying to give back to the local community. So that's one way where if the charity gets involved with the corporation as being a recipient of Give Back Day, then you really get involved with the organization, and then the client, the company, has the ability to broadcast to their employees, hey, these are the 5 nonprofits we're supporting as part of this campaign. Go click here and you'll learn more about their stories. And then they bring in the stories from those charities, so the charities can explain to the employees what they do, how it works, what kind of impact they have, etc.
Awesome. This is amazing that I have a theory of abundance, right? Like, so part of what I coach and train people on is the money is out there and there's so much scarcity mindset in the nonprofit world. Like, oh, we have to keep oh, where's the money going to come from? And, there's only so much money and you have to get your slice and all of that. And when I hear stuff like this, I'm like, okay, that's $630 million. I mean, there's money out. There's money. I just believe the universe is abundant and provides, and there's money out there. And when I hear stuff like this, it really makes me realize there's money out there, and it's just a matter of opening up and accessing it.
Yeah, that's probably easier said than done. Right? I'm sure all the people who are listening to this are saying, yeah, but that's not so easy.
And I didn't say it was easy. I said, but it can be, because that's what I work with people on, is creating that ease and flow, and really
Yeah.
like trusting in. I just had a call right before this, like really just trusting that the money is there. But when I just hear things like, I remember, it is limitless and it is out there. And that is something that I really work with people on, and just really fell in for me as you were saying this. Okay, now another thing is that you are an expert in donor advised funds. So first of all, if I have people who aren't really sure what that is, explain what a donor advised fund is.
Sure. Donor advised fund is a fund, literally a fund where people can donate the funds to the donor advised fund. We're a 501c3 charity, so we will take in the funds and we will give you a receipt saying thank you for your donation. Here, can be used for your tax purposes, etc. And along with it, either at the time that they contribute, or it could, in many cases, for individual deaths, it could be any time later. And the donor chooses what cause they want to support, what charity they want to support, and they let us know. We'd love to support the food bank of my local city, and that we consider that to be a recommendation or an advisement. Donor advised means that the donor tells us where to send the money. And then as long as that charity is in good standing with the IRS, then we'll send the funds to that charity. And what's really nice about it is that on the employee side, like we just talked about, it allows these employees to get access to the 1.3 million charities that are out there through a very simple method. In a donor advised fund, where it's just one that you or I might set up from a community foundation or one of the financial services organizations that support them, it allows us to set up an account that we can fund and grow over time, because there's a difference between the contribution coming in is them just bringing money into the nonprofit sector, and then the other decision is to send the money out to an actual charity. So it's a two-step process instead of a one-step process.
Gotcha. And it just seems like there's a lot of different ways to give. Does it get confusing for people? It feels like there's a lot to sort out.
When you say people, are you talking about the
Like,
nonprofit?
no, for donors.
For donors,
Um,
yeah.
there's a lot of different, like, how, as a donor, are you like, is a donor advised fund, like, I guess my thing is a donor advised fund, is that something that feel like from what your description is probably more accessible than we think it is? And is that something that you would recommend that people give through?
Sure. Well, here, the reason why people open up a donor advised fund is, number one, they're philanthropically inclined, right? Because they want
Uh-huh.
to give. They may not have figured that out yet, but they want to give. So they can set up an account. The other thing that happens is that a donor advised fund can take in assets that some people might not even ever dream of were able to take in. So, for instance, it's very common for a donor advised fund to take in appreciated stock. That's a great asset to give, because you normally you bought it at a low number, and now it's risen to something higher. If you go and sell it on the marketplace, you're going to get a fairly good tax hit from it. If you give it to a donor advised fund, it's a donation at the value of the time that you give it. So it's a great way to take something that has grown for you, and moving it into a charitable use so that you can put it to use in the charitable sector. So that's a really key component to it, because then it allows that donor to amplify their ability of giving. It's a much better to, if you bought some stock years ago at $1,000 and now it's worth 10,000, it's a lot easier to give that than it is the $10,000 out of your paycheck from this month,
Right.
right?
Yes.
You know.
I'm going to call it the donor amplification fund. Let's,
Yeah, right,
because I
right.
like that. That's my word for the year. Like every
Yeah.
year I have the theme. My word for the year is amplify. So I love that. So what I'm hearing is you can give. There's a more variety of things that you can give when you have this donor advised fund that allows you to take advantage of not just a cash gift, right? Like,
Correct. Right.
and what is the next step for the Blackbaud Giving Fund? What's the vision here?
Well, the vision is that in the workplace, that we get as many employees as possible engaged in these activities. If you look at today, the amount of employees that we have that get touched by these programs, not that they give, but they get touched by them, is 8 million employees. The top three providers of this kind of a service hit 20 million employees in America offering these things. Now that the take rate is relatively small. So some companies it could be 5 or 6% of the people do it. Some companies it could be 20%. And so our mission is to get more and more of those employees engaged in these activities. And so Blackbaud has a team that works with each of these clients to help them promote the programs, help them communicate that, help them make it easier for them to work so that they can get more and more employees involved. Because again, if they do, it amplifies giving into the nonprofit sector.
Right. And it seems like there's a lot of opportunity there for growth inside the company.
Huge
right?
upside opportunity. Huge
Mhm.
upside opportunity. And right now, most employees, you read the statistics, 70% of employees want to work for a company that gives back, that does something of social good. And if those companies can offer it, and then now you've got employees who want it, companies who are offering it. It's a great match, and it's a great experience for them to be involved.
Yeah, I just did a podcast a couple weeks ago with his name's Nick Lynch, and his company, they form partnership. They help corporations form partnerships with like nonprofits and influencers. And he was
Mhm.
just saying the same thing, like corporations want to give back and they are looking for opportunities to partner. And because people want to work at companies that have that some sense of social responsibility, philanthropy, something beyond themselves. And
Right.
and this is another example of that. And it does seem like, yeah, if there's 4 or 5, 6% giving inside, there's a lot of opportunity for them to grow that within the company and have it become more and more of the culture over time.
Right.
Like when like my in St. Louis, I'm in St. Louis, right? And the United Way, like, is this different in the United Way, or is because I'm familiar with that model?
Yeah. Well, I'd say it's different in a couple of key ways. The United Way is very set up to focus on, specific causes within the local community, which is awesome because that's what they do. They improve and help social causes within the areas that they work. What is different in the donor advised fund model is that it's much more open. The choice is almost universal, and the employees then can focus on the things that are important to them, as opposed to something that's important to an organization that's trying to make an impact in a particular.
So I'm wondering if like people get surprise checks that they didn't even know they had or what you were, and all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, where did this money come from?"
I get calls about once a week from a nonprofit saying, "I have this check, and I just want to make sure you guys are
Thank you,
real.
and
Who are you anyway?"
right. Is this
Right, right, yeah.
yeah, that's
Well,
amazing.
that's an issue, I think, with all these platforms that are now out there that help facilitate this giving. But at the same time, it's confusing for nonprofits because there's many platforms that now are sending them money and they don't really know who they are. They may not know who the donor is behind that. And so that's a challenge on the nonprofit
So
side.
other platforms like yours, there are
Yeah,
other ones. So it's
right.
like, oh, which do we do, or where do we throw our
Correct.
attention to?
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something that I've seen where I've actually talked to some nonprofits that have a committee that determine whether they'll accept uh, receiving funds from a particular platform because they don't necessarily want to go through the process of having to sign up for the platform.
But you don't have to
And
sign up for yours. You're
no, you
automatically
don't
on.
have to sign up for it. There is a platform that allows them to make themselves more visible, and we work hard at letting them know that so that they can tell their story. They can make it easier for us to give through electronic means. But it's it's not required. We give out by checks, and we process many checks every year.
So if somebody wanted to go and boost their profile, how would they do that? Is there I guess a website or
Yeah, there's a website, and actually even the check stub describes the website so that if they're tired of receiving checks from us, they can go online, sign up for it. What's nice about participating in the actual registration of these kind of tools, and we have one in all these organizations that are competitors, and people who do similar things have the same thing. It allows them to get back to the actual donor. So let's say you're a nonprofit and you receive a check for $2,500 from the Blackbaud Giving Fund. What is probably behind that is maybe 30 employees who gave, and when they give the donation, they let us know whether they want to be notified or be known or not, anonymous or known. And vast majority of employees put their name in, and their email address is there, and the employer or the nonprofit can then find out who those people are and reach out and thank them, and begin the process of stewarding the relationship with them.
so that is also different than other models, right? Where you're happy to
Right.
connect the
We
donor
are,
to
right.
the cause.
Yeah. It's a core part of what we want to do because we see ourselves as amplifying giving and creating this connection between the donor and the nonprofit. Hard to have a connection if the nonprofit doesn't know who the donor is.
Right.
You know?
Or the only connection is through you. There's a wall there,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, sure. If they want to be contacted, they're yours. So you can figure out if, reach out to them and then build it that way. So there's a lot of opportunity there because they've self-identified as caring. And these are folks like we talked about that may or may not have a philanthropic they're just beginning to see themselves as a giver.
Yes. But yet they chose you
Right.
because you received the check. So that's step one of
Right.
becoming a
So
long-term
there's a
loyal donor.
connection there we can build on and
That's
grow
correct.
on, right?
Right. Right.
Because it's, it starts with that emotional connection to something that speaks to you personally. I talk about this a lot. Like the foundation of my work is that I can't make people care about what I do, right? I can't, if I could, but that's what like, oh, we have to like make this case and make like, no, people care because there's something inside in them and their lived experience that connects with that. So our messaging isn't like, oh, to convince somebody to think differently. Our message is to call and connect to the people who share our values and our vision. See,
Right.
it's a big difference, but this fits in nicely with my philosophy because they have identified, hey, I care about this. Like, awesome, let's build on that.
Yeah.
That's really cool. What is the biggest like what I just want to get an idea here of the millions that you gave, who, like, can you say like what was the biggest recipient, or you don't have to say who it is, but how much they received?
Yeah, I actually don't have that in my head at the moment. But if you look at like USA or Giving USA, where they produce a report every year and they show the causes that are supported, it generally runs along those lines. So
Okay.
it's social, education, social services, health. Those are always
The biggest ones.
the biggest ones,
And
right?
then what's sort of the average?
Oh, a typical employee will give about $100 each grant, and throughout the year, our average granting for cumulative granting for an employee is about $880.
Okay. And then like I guess what would be the average like gift or payout to an nonprofit?
Well, that depends on how many of the employees from each company join in to give to
Gotcha.
that particular. So it's all over the board. We get, I've seen grants that go to our charities that are in the 500,000 to a million range because there were many employees that gave. I've seen grants that are $50.
Right.
So and we cover the whole spectrum in between.
Gotcha. All right. Is there anything else you want to share with about the giving fund or donor
Well,
advised funds?
there's one thing I would talk to nonprofits about, which is this ongoing problem of, okay, who are all these organizations and who are the donors behind it? It's a challenge for them to do that. And I don't think there's any, simple solution here, but the place to start is to look in your database and find out, first of all, what platforms are giving to you, because it's always labeled as, the Fidelity Charitable Fund, the Blackbaud Giving Fund, it's in there. And identify which ones where you're getting the most of your funds. And then because now you're kind of narrow down the problem, right? And then from there, begin to look at, well, how are you treating the data coming in? Are what they call hard credit, soft credit, right? Who's getting the hard credit for it? That should be the Blackbaud Giving Fund. Who's getting the soft credit for it? That's Marianne Dersch, because she's the donor behind that. And it's usually in there, but sometimes nonprofits don't have their system set up to easily see that. And that's step one, because you really want to make sure that you know that Marianne Dersch has given to me through one of these tools, and because she chose us, right? We've already have her as somebody who's interested in us, and that's the key. And the key is to start in the database itself. And once you do that, you can begin to get to know how to treat these people in terms of who they are and how they give. And nonprofits are getting better at this. I in the last couple of weeks, I've been getting all my thank you notes from the nonprofits that I gave at the end of the year. And this is the first year that every one of them recognized me as an individual and that I gave through my donor advice fund.
Wow.
And so now I'm seeing nonprofits get better and better at that. And that's good, because that allows them to start developing a relationship with the donor behind the funds.
Right. Yeah, that's good to know. Awesome. Thank you. All right. So your website, blackbaudgivingfund.org. I'll put the link in the show notes so people can find that. And I see, how else can people find you?
Well, we're on social media. We're on LinkedIn and under the Blackbaud Giving Fund, and we're under Facebook and Instagram at Blackbaud Fund.
This is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing this. Just opening up, I'm hoping it's opening up a lot of ideas for people, how they can start taking advantage of the giving fund, the Blackbaud Giving Fund, and right, and maybe use it to,
and all of the funds like the Blackbaud Giving Fund, because there's a number of them out there, and all the charities are receiving funds from these organizations, and the key is to get to the donors behind that.
Open up and get to the donors behind it. Right. Awesome. Okay, last question. Yeah. This is always my last question. So I'm in St. Louis. Where are you, Matt? I didn't even ask.
I'm in Chapel Hill, North Carolina.
Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Okay. So if I was ever in Chapel Hill and we wound up at karaoke together, I love karaoke. What is your go-to song?
Oh, my go-to song on karaoke. I would have to say, all right, I'll do a hokey one. Sweet Caroline.
Okay. There you go. You know what? Everybody will sing along. It'll be great.
Yeah. Generally not with me, though, because I'm a terrible singer.
But that's okay. That's why you pick one and everybody sings. And it's like, right? You don't have to be out there alone. Everybody knows the words. That's great. See me. All right. Well, next time I'm out in North Carolina, I'm going to witness that in person.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Thank you again. Thank you. And all those links are in the show notes. So if you want to learn more about the Blackbaud Giving Fund and any of that, it's all in the show notes. So please tap into that expertise. And that is it for me in this episode. Matt, thank you again for being here. If you haven't already, you can go to theinfluentialnonprofit.com. You can download my Up-Level Your Influence Starter Kit, and it has a ton of cool information and stuff for you to grow your communication and leadership skills and ask for and receive what you want. Because obviously, there's money out there to ask for and receive. So, all right. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next time on the Influential Nonprofit.